We're back. Hey, everybody, it's Darren Carter, the party starter, and we have the one, the only, Ron Josol.
Hey, man. How are you, D?
Good, man. You got my little sound effect of applause. That was exciting.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that. I have the applause, too. That's something that we both had in common. We didn't even plan that.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, for mine, we have the intro music, and then we applause.
That's funny. I thought maybe you just. Oh, I thought you had your own button, like you applauded yourself right now.
No, the DJ just included it in the beginning of the intro. So I'm like, oh, I think that was a standard thing. People do that normally.
That's good, man. It's it's really weird. I remember I heard Jay Leno do a joke back in like the 80s or the 90s. He's like, what other profession do people applaud for you? You don't like walk into the office and like, hey, here's Larry from the Cubicle 7. Yay. But it's interesting. It's interesting, right? Like getting applause, saying things, being appreciated with this sound, and then pretty much not hearing it for almost a year. It's really weird, right?
Yeah, like, I wonder if we realize we healed ourselves already and we don't need it as much, but before we needed it more. Yeah. And I think when you start comedy, that's what you're looking for. There's a void that you're trying to fill, whether most, I think, artists need to fill voids in a different way than non-artists. Like non-artists. My brother is like sort of a non-artist, so when he goes through some shit, he'll ride his bike, he'll do Jiu Jitsu, he'll beat up a guy in a street corner. No, he's not like that. But for me or you, we have to go to a place where people are in front of us and we have looking at us to heal it.
Yeah, where we have that connection where we're like, we say something that's bothering us, and then the people in the audience are like, me too. And it makes us feel like, yeah, all right, it's not just me.
I'm surprised that people connect with everything we say that is vulnerable, and you realize everybody goes through the same thing. Because sometimes I'd be like, I don't want to talk about that. It's kind of embarrassing. And then I tried it, and everybody's like, oh my God, I feel that. And I'm like, holy shit, people do connect with sad things or negative things in comedy clubs.
Yeah.
Where you're supposed to be.
And I think people know that it's a comedy setting. Mm-hmm. So they're willing to laugh at it. Like you could almost take some premises and some things that we say on stage and then take it off that platform of stand-up comedy in a comedy club and put it, let's say, on Twitter or something. And people's mindset is a different mindset, and they're not laughing at all at the same thing that they would have laughed at.
You know what? That's true.
You know,
like a lot of the connections we have outside of the stage, because people, when we say something on Twitter or what do you call it, Facebook, or even in a conversation that's live and not in a comedy setting, you could tell when you do a joke, their brain goes, is he joking? And they go, oh, yes, he is. And then they start laughing. Now, this just happened to me. Some amateur kid, and I always try to help amateur guys. Like I do seminars sometimes in Canada or overseas. And one of these kids who's a Filipino kid wanted to be on my show. That was in November. And I said, yes, for sure. I mean, he's only be doing it like maybe one year. Didn't do well. I mean, I'm fine with that. You know, you're not the headliner. You're not the middle. So, but he didn't know how to joke around with me just right now. Like I've only met him that one time in November. And he sent me a message going, hey, what's your phone number? So I sent him my phone number. And then right away he goes, hey man, I want a refund for those shirts that I bought off you from after your show. I go, why? He's like, they shrunk, now that doesn't even fit me. I'm like, all right. And he goes, I didn't want a receipt. You didn't give me a receipt. I'm like, fine, I'll get you a receipt. Relax, okay, I'll get all this stuff. And he goes, I want you to sign the receipt. I go, no, I'm not signing receipts. And after he goes, hey, so do you want to go hang out and do my podcast tomorrow? I go, no. I go, you just said I ripped you off, and I'll send you I'll send you money for maybe one, but I can't keep giving you just because you shrunk your shirt. Like I'm wearing my own merch. I've washed it 10,000 times. It still fits me. He goes, well, and after he was like, sorry, I was just joking. I go, well, you just pissed me off though. And he goes, well, sorry, I didn't mean to piss you off. I go, well, you did. So I can't reverse this right now.
Yeah.
because it's not a prank. It was just something that you didn't know. You didn't connect. You didn't try to connect with me first on a regular level, and you
Yeah.
started already on brigade. What's the word when you go off on somebody? Not brigading. Whatever.
Like
You start
roasting you. He tried to
roasting.
basically, yeah.
Yeah, and he goes, well, yeah, I should have thought about. We only met once, and maybe I should have thought about the way I approached you.
Yeah.
I go, well, look, I'll give you a receipt. And he goes, look, I'll buy more shirts off you. I'm like, dude, stop it. Just stop saying, you know what? The problem with, I want to be friends with amateurs, but you can't be. Because if it's under a category of comedy, you could our only relationship is I have to teach you shit. I'm 25 years in, you're 1 year in. We can't hang out as equals, as comedian equals.
It's
Right?
so funny you say that. And you know what? And there'll be a time where you can. And it's funny because I remember when I was an amateur, I mean, a couple of years in, and I remember I see the headliners up in, San Francisco. I'd be like, I knew that I kind of knew my place, the hierarchy. You kind of know those they're, but it was weird because I remember when I moved to LA, some of those guys that were kind of way up there, they actually started being friendlier to me. And I think a couple things, maybe they realized oh, this guy's in the scene. He's legit, he's serious. Yeah. And also maybe at that point, maybe they have less friends to hang out with. So they're like, oh, there's a familiar face. And then let me get to know this guy, as opposed to, amateur night at the Comedy Store where everybody gets 3 minutes and you could be a bum off the street or you could be whoever, so.
Well, it's funny because our last conversation about this was in the Comedy Store. You do see the hierarchy, the totem pole right in front of you. The amateurs, new comics are on the patio just trying to make friends. Then you go through that hallway and there's people that have been in it for longer. And then you keep going right before you go into the belly room area entrance. You see most of them hanging out. And then you keep going. And then you see the kitchen. And then you guys are there. The guys have been doing it for the longest. And there's a clique and crew there of Joey Diaz and Rogan and Dalia. You're in there, Bobby Lee, Russell. And who is crazy enough to approach that?
Yeah,
you can't. You have to be invited, and you have to be respected, and you have to be in the scene, and people have to. I don't even care if you're a killer comic from Brazil that coming in and just blew up in America's soil.
Yeah,
he does. When Russell blew up, he was like, I still got to make friends. I still had to meet everybody and be accepted. You don't get a pass just because you're rich or famous.
Right. You're right. It's almost like let's see if this guy's serious about his craft, in a way, right? And then there's other people that are like, screw that. They know how to. They're like, that guy's famous in Brazil. I'm going to kiss his ass. You got those people though too, right? But it is interesting. And what else is interesting? And I don't think I've talked about this on my podcast. So we talked about it, how it's, let's say you're a 25-year veteran, and then you're like, you almost feel like you have to. We kind of keep somebody at arm's length, friendly to them, but but I had this happen. I don't know if you've experienced this before, but I would be at the Comedy Store, and then the people sort of underneath, that maybe started like within the last 10 years, maybe something takes off for them and then they become the hot item, and then they kind of look at you like you're yesterday's news. I've had that happen, and that's a terrible feeling as well.
It is a terrible feeling because you never know in this business. You treat someone like shit one day, the next day he's your boss. They're your boss. And I've seen it in front of my face. I've seen people talk shit to other comics, and the next week the person becomes a success, whether they're a comedian or an actor. I remember on the way to a gig, it was me and 3 other comedians. I was an opener at the time. They were fighting each other like crazy. This is if you're in Canada. We do the gig for the weekend. At the end of the gig, one of the comedians who was the MC and I was the middle just got bumped up to the new booking booker.
Oh, wow.
And so he started on him again in the plane. And he goes, you asshole. Da, 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 da. And he was like, you know what, man? He's like, what? I'm loving this right now because guess what? Mark Breslin just called me and I'm the new booker for Yuck Yucks. And he was like, oh my God. That dude did not work for at least 3 years.
Wow.
So
that's That's interesting. This guy told me, like, when I got into comedy in the early days, he's like, here's a lesson you can learn. And because I hadn't even been to LA yet, he goes, today's comics are tomorrow's bookers. And I was
Wow.
like, interesting. Like I just kept that in the back of my mind because what you just said,
And your first friends are your first bookers before you get into clubs or any kind of spot. Yeah. Your friends are the ones that book you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that never goes away because I'm sure, I think it never goes away because I was at a club in Texas and Rob Schneider had just been there and the club owner was like, he's like, yeah, he got me David Spade. So, you know what I mean? It's probably, Rob's probably like, hey, David, man, this is a great room, blah, blah, blah. And then, I mean, I think the friends still sort of help each other no matter what level
it's kind of like you have comics and bookers and you guys are amateurs at one point and you're just amateur bookers. And then you become pro. I remember Dwayne Perkins told me a long time ago, I was dealing with an amateur show, an amateur pay, and amateur comics, and I was headlining, and I didn't get my full amount, and they did, and I was complaining to him, and after Dwayne's like, well, I do that too, but you have to remember amateurs do amateur things, and if you're gonna deal with an amateur, get ready to see some amateur shit. And I'm like, why am I putting them in position of professionalism?
Right.
They haven't gone through the ranks. So why are we putting comedians? We put comedians through that hoop. Why don't we do it to bookers too? Because there's unprofessional bookers.
Yeah.
The problem is you don't put an amateur label on bookers. It's comedians, it's fighters, it's sports athletes. You could put amateur on those. But nobody talks about the amateur doctor, like the amateur, who's still learning his first year. He's like, he got promoted. He's actually making money, but this is their first year. They're not going to do a lot of great stuff. They're going to have to still learn. It's like getting a haircut. I always go, who's the best in fades? We all do good fades. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can't. The person that started earliest probably can't, or most latest, probably can't do a fade to someone that's been doing it for 25 years unless you kept that person that sucked for 25 years. But I mean, nobody can label an amateur. It's kind of like there's amateur daters out there. The reason why a lot of people don't get women or men, they're amateur daters, but nobody puts them in that category because there's no such thing as a category as amateur daters. But, it's kind of like they say really good looking females mature in relationships later than not as good looking females. Why? Is because the as not good looking females have to use more and understand the dynamics of courting more. Where the really good looking female hits 40 finally has to learn how to date properly and say, okay, I can't just say I want this as my, because who doesn't give everything to the good looking people in this world initially?
Yeah, you know what? Being a headliner is kind of like being a good looking
girl.
Yeah, right. I mean, I thought about that. Like when you're at a club that treats you right, like they pick you up from the airport, they put you in a nice hotel, they give you anything you want. You're hot, man. Like, is there anything we want, Mr. Carter? Like
you're hot as hell. As a headliner, you're the hottest thing in the room.
Yeah.
And we don't notice that. I hate when I get this a lot. Some of my friends that are not comedians would be like, oh, well, you cheated after the show because you picked up a girl at your show. And I'm like, yeah, so, well, you have to do it like us. Well, we have to randomly just approach a girl. They don't know us. I go, it's fair game no matter where if you're going to say that to Brad Pitt, who everybody knows in the world, you have to go to Tibet where nobody knows you and pick up girls.
Right. Yeah. I know.
You have no choice. You have a better looking face than I do, so why don't you approach them? Or you are more richer than I do, and so why don't you try to pick them up in a car? Because as opposed to my Toyota, I have to use this because that's my car. That's my Porsche.
Yeah.
I have to use this because that's my good looking face. You have a good looking face. Your penis is 12 inches long. Guess what? My act is 12 inches long.
Yeah. I got a big act, baby.
I got a big act, can go on for days.
Yeah. Do you So I'm married, but 23 years. I love being married.
Amazing.
I love it, man.
I
just
would
think
I would
it's,
love to.
you know,
I would love to be married.
I was just going to ask you, are you dating anyone? Are you single? Like, what's it like during a pandemic to be single? Or I don't know, like,
Well, normally I have girlfriends. So no, my life basically is like I'll have a girlfriend for a year. They will dump me 100%. Like
mhm.
maybe there's a 2% chance I'll dump them. They will definitely dump me because they're like, I can't be in a relationship where you are gone 3 weeks of the month. I tell them in the beginning, and they're like, "Sure, I love that. I have the freedom." I'm like, "Cool." And within a year, it's a year. It never hits past a year, 8 months, 9 months. This is since I was probably 30.
Mm.
So my last relationship was just right before the pandemic, and from that point, there's only so much you can do. Like, and when I was in LA, I didn't really want to meet up. I know a lot of people that met up with people on Tinder or whatever. They're Hinge. I
Yeah.
just didn't want to meet up with anybody at the time. It just felt really unsafe. And then so when I moved back to Canada, for the time being, I've been going on a date every 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe every 2 weeks. And some of them are good, some of them are bad. The
Is it
last
kind
one
of,
was
do you
awful.
guys show up with like the mask and then you're like, you take it off? I mean, I wonder what that's like. That's,
Well, I mean,
you
here
probably,
in
yeah, yeah.
Canada, you don't. I mean, you don't have to wear the mask outside. So we
Mhm.
met outside. We didn't have a
Oh,
mask on, and then
yeah.
we put it on while you went into a restaurant.
Oh,
Then you
okay.
take it off at the table, or take it off, or put it back on when you go to the bathroom. So that's basically, you could meet somebody in a restaurant. You don't have to have the mask on.
Oh, that's cool. Hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully LA will be like that eventually. California,
it will be. I mean, it just all depends on how long it takes for people to wear masks, social
yeah.
distance, and get shots. That could
I'm
take a
just,
year.
I was just interested in like, yeah, like, so you know what the girl looks like already. It's not like, all
Well,
right,
here's the
here's
thing.
the,
When I went
yeah.
on a date, she did not look what she looked like exactly. Right.
Mhm.
There's been 2 or 3 times where I go, this is you 25 years ago.
Oh,
Like I went
yeah.
out on a date in Koreatown, and she was Korean. This was like last year. And when we met up, she did not look, she looked like that was the person's mother.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she was definitely in her 50s, but the picture was like easily 25 to 30 years old.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
they catch you. You're like,
Mm.
oh man, what did you?
You know what, man? I learned a great trick with not trick, but a tip, I should say. I learned how to trick people. No, here's a tip I learned with stand up. And this is a great, you know what, man? I learned a lot from a comedian who started late in life, and that's Dean Del Rey. Shout out to any Del Raisers out
Wow,
there.
I love that guy.
You know what I mean? This guy, he
Yeah,
started when he was like 44 years old, I think, and he's in his
unbelievable.
50s, and he's got the energy and the fire of a young man, because it's new. He's like, I don't have a lot of time. I got to get out there and make up for lost time. So, I learned a lot from him, even though he was sort of a beginner when I met him. But dude, he was a musician, and so he knew the entertainment world. But here's the thing I learned from him. He goes, Darren, you got to get new headshots every year, man. Headshots at the beginning of the year. I get new headshots because he goes, when you have those old headshots, it looks like that's when you gave up on your career, And I'm like, that's great, dude. That's great.
Yeah,
That, and I think if that girl that you talked about, if she would, have new, like recent pictures, then it wouldn't be a big deal. People would be like, oh, I know what I'm getting into, a 50 something
yeah.
year old Korean woman. But you're right. When the guy's expecting, like, I don't want to show up. I don't like when clubs have like a headshot of me from 20 years ago with like a full head of hair. And you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that
It's
must
like
be
weird
weird.
where it's like,
Do
dude,
they
that's not
still do
me.
that?
Stop. Yeah. No, luckily I email them and text them. I'm like, there are a few that will. Here's what I hate: when they just go to Google and just grab any picture, and I'm like,
Yeah,
no, man, like that's
yeah.
20
My
years
last
ago.
one, I mean, I was like, this is not even me. Like, I have no beard. My
Mm.
hairline's this low. I'm
Yeah,
260. I'm like, what are you doing?
yeah, yeah.
Like they're gonna go, we're looking for the fat guy, the
Right.
Filipino fluffy.
Yeah. See, I usually what happens is when I know that I have the booking, or when I know it's for sure, like the deposit is sent or whatever. When I know it's for sure, that's when I'm like right away, like here's some links to promote. Here's the pictures. Here's the you know that way I know they have it. That I don't rely on like them Googling something or something that's in a file cabinet.
You know, like the improv never made those mistakes with like their A-list headliners. They never.
Yeah.
You'll never see a picture of, let's say, who's headlining there, like, you know, whoever what it is, like Maz when he has hair. You'd be like,
right.
They're not gonna fuck that shit up, you know.
Right.
I think when you make it to a certain level and you're selling out all the big improvs, they're like, okay, make sure the mic works and they have the right headshot. that's the two things you don't look for in a normal show.
You know what I've learned too is back when you said amateurs, and like I remember I've learned to, like, if I think a club or a promoter is doing something wrong, I've learned to not get as upset, because I remember one time I did this club and I got kind of upset because it was a brand new club, but they only had one microphone. And I remember the feature kept from the week before, or like the week before they had really banged it up and the cord was crackling. And so when we got there, I remember when the feature was on the week that I was there, like the mic went out, but it wasn't his fault. It was because and they didn't have a backup mic. They didn't know that you should have,
unreal.
And they're just, you know, they just didn't know, I guess. They didn't know you should have extra microphones, extra cords, you know, and
yeah, but what do you do? That's not your home club. At the same time, you know, my friend gets really angry in Vancouver because he's like, oh, they don't have a craft table. They don't have this. I go, here's the problem in being emotionally invested in a club. You're never going to be happy with that club.
Yeah. What's a craft table?
Oh, like they put out a spread of craft cheese.
Oh yeah,
and
like craft services and stuff. Yeah,
so they have craft services, like they kind of like a movie set, where some clubs in England, because this guy was moved to England for 10 years, came back to Canada, and he was complaining, and I said, you could just lose your mind if you keep complaining about that, because here's the reason why I probably don't complain enough. I'm only there for a week, like you are.
Yeah.
Like, how much emotionally invested can you get with the green room in any club you play?
Yeah, you know what? Something that I learned. I took this acting class about I'm not good at math. 12 years ago. I think
it was 6. I think it was 6.
Yeah, it was 6 years ago. Okay, it was 6 years ago. And no, but I remember they were like, "Hey, we're going to do this seminar. It's free. You're already paying for the classes. Come on Saturday." And there was a like a celebrity publicist who does these speaking events, and he talks to, you know, different groups of people. And one of the things that he said that I really thought was great. Basically, think Tony Robbins, but like not Tony Robbins. One of the things he said is, you know, fire your flaky friends. He's like, you want to get successful? He's like, these people that say they're going to be there and they never show up or they cancel, get rid of them. He goes, cut off the dead weight. You need to like fire your flaky friends. He's like, also, you know, to be successful, he goes, I don't care if it's people I've worked with, like Oprah or Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson, or he talked about all these people he's worked with. He's like, he goes, they have the magic, and he draws it on a chalkboard, O's, like letter O. He goes, they're obsessed with their craft. If it was Michael Jordan, I'm not leaving till I get 100 free throws. He goes, they're obsessed. He talked about optimism, drenching yourself with optimism. Even when things aren't going your way, you got to just believe and work hard and be optimistic. And one of the things he said was, you know, be professional, like be, you know, excellence. He said, you know, give people excellence. He's like, if you give people excellence, they'll want to hire you. They'll want to work with you. They'll want to, so I think I took that part of the thing a little too to heart. So I'd be like, I'm going to be excellent. I'm going to be excellent on stage. I'm going to be excellent promoting on social media. And then I'd show up to a club and their mics would be broken and this wouldn't work. And I would get kind of like, you know, I don't really show my anger, but I would be kind of like, this isn't right. Like, and I realized that's not healthy for me or the relationship. It's better.
No, because that's how you are. That's how you are. You can't expect anybody be at the level of excellence as you.
Right.
You know, so why we're only allowing people, if we're going to have conversations or hang out with people that strive like us, but clubs are not going to be the same. We can't expect, like, it's kind of like this. I know who I am and how much if I'm in a relationship, how much I give. Like, I really do. I'm like, okay, this is how much I really do give. And I try to make it 50-50, and I go above and beyond for sure. But if that person doesn't go above and beyond like me, I can't expect them to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's not who they are. You know, and I wouldn't probably date somebody for that long if they couldn't strive with me to the expectations we both put on ourselves in excellence. But I can't be mad at someone I picked. I can't be mad at somebody I got booked for. I said yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey Ron, you may not have a good hotel. The mic may not work, but we're giving you $12.50 at the end of the week. Yes. Then no fucking complaint, because you said yes. Like the same girl that you dated.
Yeah.
You dated a girl. You dated a guy that's promiscuous and sleeps around, and you get mad when he does it to you. You know what you got into, so we have to take accountability. Because we said yes to the contract. We signed it. We said yes. Well,
you know what? One thing that helped one thing that's helped me, I think, is believe it or not, I joined in that boxing gym about 4 years ago. It really helped me because it showed me how hard things can be, and you just got to keep pushing till that clock runs out, the bell rings, ding ding.
Yes, 100%.
And 100% sweating. Like I hadn't sweated like that. And so I'm telling you, like when they're like, hit the bag, even if you just tap it right for like 3 minutes and you're tapping it and I used to, you know, to get that sweat that goes like, not just that bib sweat, but like where the front of your shirt and the
drenched.
back of your shirt and your
kneecaps, when your knees are sweating, that's when you know you're sweating.
And truth be told, I haven't sweated like that, like in a long time, like even now during the pandemic, because I'm mostly working outside. And also knowing when there's like a coach that's pushing you, when no one's pushing me, I sometimes will just do like 2-minute rounds. When someone's pushing me, they're like, come on, you got it, 30 seconds, let's go. Right.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, what I remember, like probably within the first 2 months of joining one of the boxing gyms I joined and getting all that sweat. I remember I performed at a comedy club and the AC was broken, or maybe only one part of it was working, whatever. It was uncomfortably, the audience was fanning themselves. And I hate to see that because they usually don't laugh as much because they're lethargic, they're tired, they're drinking, they're just like, and before I would have been like, oh my gosh, like, what? You know, I would have had like a little like, oh no. But I remember thinking like, as hard as it is in here, I'm much harder in that boxing gym. And I said, just man up there and don't, just smile through it and just breathe better and don't take it personal. It's nothing. Cause I used to be like, I bet the AC would be working if it was if this was an A club and if this is an A comic, or, you know what I mean? Like I started getting kind of like
this is my philosophy of why people start comedy and are able to take the rejection for the first 2 to 5 years when they start, is because their lives are just as bad. So they're okay with it. If you're a cool person that starts comedy and can't compare it to your shitty life, you're gonna stop really early because you don't like the environment that you're in. You know, think of people's lives. Yeah. Whether, you know, my mom or your parents or blah, 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 you know, the hardship. And then you start comedy and you get booed or people don't show up. Hey, that was easy compared to what I had to live before.
Yeah.
You know, but if you have everything and you start comedy, I don't know how long you can last because your reference is different.
Yeah.
You know,
it's got to be different for the people that are, let's say they're social influencers or they were big on TV and they're doing comedy in the most indoor cat situations. They're like, you know, their name is on the marquee, their name is on the flyer. They're getting a sweet spot at an A room in Hollywood or LA. And the crowd loves them because they're excited to see them. And even if they just do okay, the crowd's still like, oh my God, that's so-and-so from that movie. And, you know.
Yeah, they still get adulation from the audience. And
I wonder.
And you wonder what?
Oh, I was just going to say, and also probably when they do the road, they're probably once again in an insulated situation. They're not really doing like, I wouldn't imagine.
I think it's easier to do that. Yeah. Like, if you're an amateur comic, you don't have no notoriety, and you're not famous at any level, that's going to be hard. If you're famous, you're going to have an easier time. It's not going to be great. Like, I don't care who you are. when you start comedy, it's a different set of rules that you haven't been accustomed to.
Yeah.
And you have to format your sensibility of humor into that format. It's not going to be easy your first 2 years, whether you're Charlie Murphy or Brandon Schaub or whoever. You're going to go through some shit. Like, there's no way. But what you can do is MC your show and bring your friends on that are famous. You could just do a 50-minute spot at the end. You could do that and build an act. It's harder for a famous person trying to get into MMA today, like Brock Lesnar, because you get a name. If you're Brock Lesnar or a famous boxer like Floyd Mayweather, you think you could practice in their small venues first before you're ready for the big leagues? They're going to put you straight to the big leagues because the money that you can make from your name is already the top level.
Yeah.
How are you going to practice? Like, it's easier for a famous person to go into a fucking small open mic with 20 people, 5 people, and they're like, oh my God, Robin Williams, because he always used to do that. When he came to Toronto, we would bring him to 4 people in the comedy show that didn't believe it was him because they were drunk and it was 2 a.m.
Yeah.
They're like, that can't be Robin Williams. Robin Williams is famous. Why would he be in the ghetto? You know? But MMA fighter couldn't do a regular small open mic show. You think Brock Lesnar's going to go to a place where there's 20 people in the backyard? You know, like that's...
Yeah, and also, what if he gets hurt? And it's like, damn, I should have just saved it for the big paycheck.
Yeah, so the risk level to do MMA, and that's where I came from. So I was doing jiu-jitsu before I did comedy, but that gave me the strength to do comedy. If I didn't do jiu-jitsu at all, wouldn't be a comedian, because I thought this: how hard would comedy be if I got my arm broken last night or passed out or got knocked out? Like, because I have fought, and I was like, this can't be harder than this. And it was just as hard, if not more harder, because of the mental. But my first time I ever went up, I got booed. So that was like, whoa, I got booed off my first fucking time. How hard is this?
Wow.
But it made me go, no, I got to go back, because it was like somebody beating me up, someone choking me out, somebody making me tap. And I was like, I got to go back. And if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu and doing boxing and all that shit, I swear I wouldn't go back, because what jiu-jitsu or MMA or boxing or martial arts taught me was you get up after you get knocked down.
What was the worst loss? Like what feels, or is it totally different? Losing in, let's say, jiu-jitsu or boxing, as opposed to like losing in comedy in the first time you lost, like with comedy. The
first time I lost in comedy felt exactly like me being choked out. And then I woke up and seeing everybody around me going, "Ooh, that was bad." Like, that felt the same, because I wasn't hurt physically, either one.
Yeah.
But it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
It was like you lost. People saw you lose at the highest level, which is you passed out. They're awake, and then you go, "Oh my God, you saw me for how long was I out?" Like, your first thing is, how long was I out? It's like a minute, not even. Oh, okay. You know, but it's still embarrassing because it's a loss. But it's an embarrassing loss because you look embarrassed. You're like this. This is, I don't know what's worse than that.
Yeah, you're vulnerable. You're like, you're not. Oh my God, that's why.
Are people yelling at me, like booing? Boo! Get off! You suck! And I'm like, and I look back, I'm like, you guys see, they can't even think this guy was his first time. You can't. They didn't give a shit. Like, that's how evil audiences are when it comes to fucking mob mentality. They don't give a shit if you're a child. They don't care if it's your dream. Like Chappelle said it when he went to the Apollo, got booed. My very first time on stage, and I have it on I put it on YouTube, and it was crazy.
Your first time getting booed is on YouTube?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm like, it's not that easy, okay? And then this big woman is like, "You suck." It was the only time I had a heckler that I responded. I've never have been heckled to that degree, even till today. She goes, "You suck." And because I was trying to talk about jiu-jitsu, and I was like, "You probably I go, "You're tough. You probably take jiu-jitsu or more maybe sumo wrestling, right?" And then people went nuts. And I'm like, how did that come out of my mouth? Yeah. Till today, we still do that. We create things on stage that our conscious mind is not fast enough to come up with it.
Yeah.
So you're and you're like, how's this happening?
Yeah.
My voice is someone's operating something in a subconscious level that's coming out. Like, you ever see Ian Bag? You're like, obviously that's Rain Man, right, for comedy. And there's no way he can premeditate any of this shit. It's like this or nothing. Your brain's faster than your actual motor skills. That's what I realized.
It's wild, right? Like, I remember I gave a headliner a ride to the show. I'd pick him up, give him a ride, and I got so much knowledge. This guy, he went on to write for the Tonight Show and everything, and he was a writer. But one of the things he said is like, he goes, Darren, don't try to memorize. Like, he's like, sometimes you'll see comedians memorizing these stock lines, like, hey, I don't go down to the Burger King and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
He goes, you've been a funny guy since you were a little kid. He goes, if you're backed up into that corner on stage, and your brain will tell you how to get out of it.
Yes.
And that was the best advice, because I never wanted to be one of those guys that, like, you know what I mean, memorize. They're funny lines, but I don't want to. I don't want to do those stock lines. Like, I bet you some. I was thinking about.
Yeah. So good.
Like, have you ever heard this stock line? The first time I heard this line, I thought it was funny, and then I kept hearing more comedians say it. And it was at the Comedy Store. I heard some older comedian, when people are they're talking in the back of the room, he'd go, "Hey, where'd you learn to whisper?" In the back of a helicopter, right?
Yeah.
And I realized, like, I wonder where that originated from. I wonder if somebody came up with that during like the early 70s, like if that was like a Vietnam era line, or maybe it came out in the World War II. You never know. Like,
I think it must have came out of that era, the war eras. I mean, that's funny, because that line, I saw it in fucking India. So I'm like, wow, it went pretty far.
Wow.
Yeah. India. So it's like, like 10 years ago, I remember going, wow, you guys still do the same lines we do. Like, I remember going, you guys are hacks too. You know?
Yeah.
And the weird thing is when you have to up, it's funny, you could actually say that line today as a joke, because there's a new hack line it's like this. I'm always hanging out with a millennial comic that I always make young friends. I have a lot of older friends that are coming, a lot of younger. The 25-year-old ones always update me of what's hack.
Yeah, what's hack now? What do they say now? What do you learn to whisper?
Don't do vape jokes. I'm like, that's a thing now? Like, you know how everybody does vape jokes? I go, no. And they're like, well, everybody that's 25 makes fun of vaping. I'm like, whoa. Well, you know what? They didn't get past the Laugh Factory yet, so I didn't get to see them yet.
Yeah. Hey, would you learn to whisper in the back of an Uber pool?
That's hilarious.
I don't know what they even say now. Yeah.
At the back of a protest for Black Lives Matter.
Would you learn to whisper? You're trying to update everything. Yeah, that would be a good idea, to go like through my act and try to update things that are like.
Oh, I have to constantly do it now. I always do it now, because all these kids, I'm always doing open mics, because this is what Norm Macdonald told me years ago, because he was a Yuck comedian from Canada. Him, Howie Mandel, and what's his name, used to hang out in the Amateur Night all the time. And they go, Amateur Night is a place where you can get the latest and greatest pop culture news, right? But hanging out at a pro comedy show is where you get the latest and greatest news. Like latest and greatest headline news is for the older professional comedian. Latest and greatest pop culture news is from the young. Whatever comes out in the market, the young will know first. Whatever happens in this world, in this country, and politics, the older people know.
Interesting.
Yeah, but we have the punchlines. They don't have. They don't have the punchlines. We're looking for new setups or new premises. The young people have all that shit.
That's funny. My son's 13, and he definitely is like into what's happening now. Like, and he figures things out. He's a musician, so it's great, because he's like, he knows certain things that are like, I'm like, oh, it's awesome, and.
Well, I mean, he's your secret weapon, like Joe Coy. Joe Coy's secret weapon is his son. His son tells him what music to walk up to, and says, "Don't do that anymore." And you have to wear this, and you should do more of this. Then but the son doesn't know how to write a joke, so you can't really hang out, learn from that part or what. But he'll tell what looks too old, and what looks too young. Dad, that looks a little too old for you. Dad, that looks a little too young for you. What you're saying is a little too old for you. What you're saying is too young for you. So it's kind of, he kind of catches him in the middle someplace.
Oh, that's
where
good.
it's-
That's
Yeah,
good.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a secret weapon. If you have a son that's in his teens, that son can constantly keep updating you in what's cool in culture, in pop culture, music, and whatever.
Yeah.
And also, your son would probably know what the coolest of you would be,
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
loser version of you that
Right,
could
right,
still
right.
work.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think they'd be looking out for that if your relationship with your son is good, I guess.
You know what's funny, man, is sometimes I'll do a joke just to kind of see what I'll do like a quick pun. Oh, hey, son. Or I can't even think of an example. I'll give him a quick pun just to see what he does. Like you and I might call it, those are dad jokes or whatever. But he's like, he'll go like, oh, Dad, you're the king of cringe.
Yeah.
It's like, that's so cringy. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't want to be cringy. But,
That's funny. That's such a word that the millennials use today. It's like this one. We have a cousin millennial who likes to play the guitar. We're like, oh, show us a video. No, it's cringy still. Right.
Oh,
Okay.
it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was dating this one girl whose kid was 13, and she was telling us the new words and the new clothes. So she's like, feel is in now. And then she's like, yeah, when someone gives you attitude, it's not called attitude. It's called sass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she updated me and my girlfriend at the time of all the new stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to say lit.
Yeah.
Yo, man, that's lit, bro. Like, I don't feel comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
Or like, there's certain words, and then one of my actual cousin's daughters who are like 14, 15, and they're like, what are the new words? She's like, we're not going to tell you because you'd look stupid saying it either way.
And then it looks old if you don't want to be like, that is so dope or so fly or so.
Yeah.
Do you remember we used to know all that stuff? And then you'd hear, it'd be funny when an older person would say the wrong, you're like, damn, that guy still, like, I remember when there was a time when people were saying like man, like, what up, man? I think I still say man, but then it kind of switched over to dog. Hey, dog. And then
what's up, honestly, son? Hey, son.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I try not to.
It's hard to keep it up, and it comes to the point where you go to Laugh Factory, you go to the Improv or Comics or whatnot, and you'll see the young kids use it, and then you'll see the older people use it, and then you're like, and then you'll see someone old that actually doesn't use it or makes fun of it, and you're like, I like that one, I like that.
Yeah.
I like when CK used to do that, or Bill Burr used to make fun of the language, and even like, whoever, Chris Rock, or was like, some of those new words I'm not going to say,
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's better to use almost the traditional words, than, it's bad when commercials start using those words. You're like, okay, that's just when it's,
Yeah. Remember when commercials started using rap and we're like, ugh, I want this for myself.
Yeah, exactly. Ron, we're going to wind things down. I got a couple questions for you. I usually try to ask these on the podcast. What is something that you've recently bought? It could be any price, something that you've recently bought that made you a little happier.
Oh, wow. I constantly buy stuff once every week just to make me happy, because there's some high you get off it. Recently I bought barbells for my house. So because there was a lockdown for a month, nice. I bought barbells, and now I'm like, you know what, this is cool. I don't have to go to the gym every day. And when you're doing it at home, I could watch TV, and it's just, each side can go up to 40 pounds, and I'll do 25, 20 pounds this, I'll do shoulders, and then I'll put the 40 to do this.
That's cool.
That makes me feel good because I purchased something, and that's because it was a mental and body thing. But I bought this hat that was a LL Cool J Kango hat, and I love it because it's so nice and fluffy and warm because it's made of wool.
Oh,
and that makes me feel so happy because nobody wears the bucket Kango anymore.
Yeah, man, that's 80s, right? LL Cool J is
hard
on my radio.
Dude, my radio, Beat Street. So I wear that hat, a Beat Street shirt from 1984. or 3. And then I wear this jacket that looks like a breakdance. It's a jean jacket. If you ever seen the movie Beat Street, the lead role is Lee, and I copied his exact look with the jean jacket, the Kango bucket hat. I just don't have the glasses, right? But people will look at me walking. My friends are like, "Dude, that's crazy. Where did you find that hat and that shirt? Why are you so retro right now?" I go, I'm reliving the happy moments by wearing them now. So I'm wearing Back to the Future shirts, Prince the Revolution, Michael Jackson Thriller shirt. I'm wearing stuff that, because when I do my podcast, it's all about reconnecting with friends that I know rather than strangers.
Dude, that is so lit.
Yeah, it is. It's fire. It's fire, bro.
That's fire, son. Yeah. But you're right, though, man. I remember I had this shirt for a while. I don't know where it's at now, but it was a Kermit the Frog riding a 10-speed. And I was like, man, that's just, That's
from the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, Kermit the Frog, and he's on a 10-speed. Oh, it's from the movie? Wow.
Well, I know he rode the bike in the movie, and when I watched the movie as a child, I'm like, where's the puppet master guy behind him?
Oh.
And I'm like, this is the first time I don't see him with some weird shade under him, behind him, or half of his body. And I didn't like it. I want him to be halfway of the screen.
Yeah.
I don't want to see his long, weird legs.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't like this. He's too human to me now.
Oh, for me, I liked it because I thought I liked old school 10 speeds. Like I wouldn't want one for myself. I like the bike I have now, but I just thought, oh, it's cool. But you're right, though. It probably is from a movie. I bought another shirt. I had no idea it was from a movie, and it was from like Tommy Boy. It was Callahan's.
Oh, cool.
Tommy Boy. And people were like, oh, I love that movie. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know it was from a movie. I just I thought it was a funny shirt, but
yeah, like shirts make me happy. Like, especially that reminds me of stuff. Like, I'd buy this, what's the restaurant beside Last Factory? The
Greenblatt's.
If they had a shirt, I'd wear it.
Yeah.
Because somebody that plays the factory, I may meet down the road somewhere in like fucking overseas, and they're like, yo, that shirt's the craziest. That was the best restaurant. Like, because it's so specific.
I know, with the Russian dressing, I think Cantor's has shirts. You ever go to Cantor's on Fairfax?
Yeah, I love Cantor's. I always go there. It's one of my go-tos.
When things kick in again, man, we gotta go to Cantor's, man, and get.
What do you order in Cantor's?
I usually try to get the one. I usually get the pastrami. I love the pastrami, and I like the latkes, those pancake-looking latkes.
I get a latke and all the time with a liver spread sandwich.
Ooh,
chopped liver and onions. Unreal. Wow. Like, I'm not even a liver fan. I just like how delis make liver sandwiches.
I should try that. I had liver I haven't had liver in a long time. Liver and onions is really good.
It is. It's more of a food that you're forced to eat growing up, so you don't want to relive those moments. It's like I don't like vacuuming right now, but I have to.
Hey, you know what I've been doing, which I haven't done in a long time? I've been doing more during the pandemic. Up at the farm, I've been sweeping, and because usually you live in an apartment, there's not a lot of sweeping going on. But man, like I kind of do like sweeping. It reminds me of the whole Mr. Miyagi thing, wax on, wax off. Like I'm getting good at if my arm gets tired, then I turn around and I do it this way. And it's like, I don't know. And at the end, you're like, wow, it looks great, and
yeah, you get a good rush out of that, like stuff like even mowing lawns for me.
Yep. You learn how to do the lines back and forth and then this way. And
maybe we have a genetics of like worker people, like you, maybe, because honestly, I think that's a thing. Like certain people love, like my friend Marito, who's El Salvadorian, and he's actually part of the Incas. Like his whole family line goes back for the Incas. He wakes up and he tries to fight it since he was a kid. He has to clean. And I go, why? He goes, I don't know. And I tell, and he tells his mom, what the fuck? I can't stop cleaning. He goes, he loves cleaning more than comedy. He said this.
Really?
And he goes, she was like, oh, that's in your blood. We've been long genetic cleaners.
Wow.
Lines of cleaners. I'm like, I must have that genetically too, because if we're made up with different people's genes that are from our,
I'm not going to say that I'm like that. And hopefully my wife doesn't watch the podcast to this point, because she's going to be like, I'm like, look, honey, the few times I've sweeped, I got a high out of it. Okay. It's not like I'm addicted to sweeping, but yeah.
Yours is a different gene. Yours is a
yeah.
entertaining gene. Like, that's different.
Yeah.
You had to. See, here's the thing. Everybody goes, why did you start it? I had no choice. It was part of me.
I know. It's like
I had
that song.
no fucking choice.
It's like that blues song. He's got the boogie in him, and he has to get it out. You know, it's in him. You know, that boy's got that boogie in him.
There's nothing you can do. You know, he can't stop cleaning. Dennis Rodman has to be late once in a while and party. That's what your body tells you.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
I know. Hey, Ron, it was great having you on the show, man. Thank you, and
Thanks.
please come on again, and thank you. For
sure, man. We always have great conversations, and hopefully we can go to Cantor's, because I'm going to be. I'm going to bring you to a Filipino restaurant in March.
Yes. I want to start for you guys watching this far into the podcast. Thank you. A new element I want to bring to my YouTube channel is I don't know how often I can do it, but I want to start hitting up some different spots around LA or different restaurants, things I haven't tried yet. I want to take you guys to places, and I want. I'd love if Ron could take me to a Filipino restaurant. I don't know what to order, so he could help me. And
I will tell you the 4 basic food groups in Filipinos, which is basically chicken, pork, beef, and fish.
I'm into it, man. Yeah,
I'll do it for sure.
Thank you. All right, Ron. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
And, look into Ron. Look him up on YouTube, and have a great day, everyone.
We're done with this interview.